Hey guys, good morning. Gonna start just a little bit early. I'm watching the stream. It's not up yet. Um, it's live in the courtroom, but they're just showing the seal. So what I wanted to do, and the reason I started early, was to show a little clip of Kayla's testimony. She's the friend of Megan who went over to the house to get the father's credit card information and found him in the state he was, and ended up calling the brother and 911. So I'm about to punch the button on that when I get to the right thing. This is about 2.5 minutes, and I'll show it again during the break because I'm sure some people will miss this, but since it didn't get shown yesterday, this was earlier. Let's go.
Were you still friends with Kayla or with Megan now?
Yes.
All right. And how old were you at that time?
I was 17.
You were 17 years old?
Yes.
All right. Did Megan contact you that day?
Yes.
When was that?
It was started at 10 in the morning. She sent me a Snapchat photo of her crying, and I asked her what was wrong. And then she said that her dad got drunk, and she got upset, and she threw stuff at him.
Okay, so she sent you Snapchat, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about Snapchat. How does it work?
You send a photo to someone, like you add them as a friend, and then you send a photo to someone, and it deletes after you send it, or you can hold it down, but it'll replay it one time. There's a new feature where you can save it in the chat too as well, but I didn't. Or I don't remember if I did or not. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So you said you got a photo of her crying?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you talked to her then?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you converse with her?
I said that, what's wrong?
Well, let me ask you, did you send her a message?
Oh, yeah, I texted her on Snapchat.
Okay. And you said, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And then she said what?
She said that her dad got drunk and that he didn't care because she had stuff to do today, and she threw stuff at him.
Okay. Do you know what was special about that day?
It was her birthday.
Okay. She was supposed to have a party that night, is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So she was crying when in that photo?
Yeah.
All right. Did she contact you again?
Yes.
When was that?
A few hours later, she asked me to drive her to her party.
Okay.
Or the hotel.
Did you go and pick her up then?
No.
Okay, why not?
I was in school, and I didn't respond for a while, and then I said yes, and then she told me that she was going to get a ride from someone else.
Okay, so you weren't going to have to go pick her up?
No.
And then she contacted you again, right?
Yes.
When was that?
That was around 3:47 in the afternoon. She called me.
Okay. And you talked to her on the phone then?
Yes.
How did she seem?
I don't know. Just normal.
Okay.
Pretty much.
She wasn't crying then? Right?
No.
All right. So this was 3:47 on October 1st?
Yes.
What did she ask you to do?
She asked me to go over to the house and get the credit card information from her dad because it wasn't working when she was at the hotel.
Okay. So she was already at the hotel, to your understanding?
Yes.
All right. And the credit card was not?
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I went over to the house.
All right. Did you ask her any questions about?
Okay, so that's the clip I had. I'm checking on the stream here to see if that's coming in yet. All right, so let's see if anybody has any thoughts on that. In the meantime, I'm going to pull up, hopefully, the statute while we wait on the judge to get active and show you that. So these are the definitions at stake. The charge is that she released a chemical irritant for an unlawful purpose, and then it resulted in the death of someone. Unlawful purpose includes, but it's not limited to, having the intent to do any of the following. So there has to be some level of intent here, and talked about that yesterday, if it was a mistake or whatever. So the intent is not really so much necessarily the nature of the irritant, but that she intended to frighten, terrorize, intimidate, threaten, harass, injure, or kill any person. So intent can be inferred too. I'm sure they'll have a jury instruction for that. And, was she trying to harass him? Or why else would you throw cleaning solution on him? Injure? I think it's fair to infer that. Certainly, in my opinion, the harassment part, or frightening or whatever. If he's passed out, he's not going to be frightened. But, if you're throwing this stuff on a person, don't you think you fairly come under one of these definitions? It seems to me that you would. So let's see. Stop that one. And get this other stream going for when it starts. It's still just setting there on my screen, but I'll bring it up here in a second. So, just forecasting this case a little bit, and after listening to the friend's testimony, it seems to me that this really ought to be about how much punishment she gets and not of whether she did it or not. But haven't heard the defense's side. We'll have to see what they have to say. But how do you really squeeze out of this thing? It may be the case that she's like, oh, I didn't know it was an irritant. And since I didn't know it was an irritant, I didn't have this unlawful purpose, and I have to have intent of an unlawful purpose. And if I thought it was benign, then I wasn't obviously trying to harass or injure someone because I didn't think it would do those things. But harass is a pretty broad word. And in my view, when it has a giant label that says this is going to poison people and it can burn people, then the fact you chose not to read it, I don't know about that. All right, there's people walking around in the courtroom, so I'm gonna get that party started. Let's see, present. I bet I could do this faster if I were good at it. Let's put this thing up here. There we go. So that's how it's setting right now. I'll flip it back for the moment until that pops back up. Yeah, drink hot sauce or put it on things, I guess. So when I played this clip of the friend testifying, the algorithm also had some exciting items that I might be interested to purchase, or you might be as a viewer of this non-monetized stream. Oh boy, here's another joke involving heat. I don't know if it was a joke or not, but I mean, if I were on the jury, I'd be like, yeah, she's guilty of this offense. The punishment, if that's up to the judge, I didn't look that all the way up yet to see what the story is, but on that, but I would find her guilty of the offense, which is releasing a chemical irritant with the intent to commit an unlawful purpose, and that can include harassing and or injuring. It's not even limited to those things. So it sounds pretty bad for her, plus domestic violence. But I think maybe that was one of the charges. She's got some misdemeanor, but this thing about releasing a chemical irritant and then it results in the death of somebody, well, that's a felony, and the maximum punishment is life imprisonment, which she's not going to get that, I don't think, but something. So if you haven't seen it, watching the friend's testimony in its totality is interesting because she does describe the condition of the father when she found him and what she did and how she called the brother, and the brother said call 911, and he came over, and Megan, the defendant, tried to get the credit card number from the father. That's all she was really concerned about. And I guess ultimately her big day was ruined when the police showed up at the hotel at some point. And I don't know if that guy testified before we started the stream yesterday, or if that's the law enforcement official who's going to testify today. Because I heard the DA say he had two more witnesses, and one was a law enforcement guy. The other was an emergency room doctor, and that's it. And then the defense said he would try to move his witnesses up and get them on in there. So this case is moving along pretty rapidly. I think if they had known exactly how fast it would go, they'd be finished with it today. I don't know they'll do that. It could be another short day for the jury. We'll see when they get going. So the judge asked the jury to be back at 9:30. That doesn't mean they start then, because they may have issues with talking about witnesses and how to call them, how to manage the day. If there's any motions the attorneys want to make, they may handle those before they start the stream up. Plus, sometimes the judge has something else to do. So they can be on time, or they can just do it whenever they feel like it. So let's see. This segment is brought to you by Bitchin' Hot Sauce, which I have never tried, and I have no idea what's coming up for us next. Yeah, now I watched, they showed her a lot when her friend was testifying, Kayla, and I've never seen the defendant react to the description of her father, because Kayla talked about how his fingernails had already curled up off of his hand, and the girl was just sitting there like, what's up? So it seems like there isn't an expression of remorse in the courtroom, and I haven't seen one before that. Now that's something the defense, if I were them, I would have to tackle. If my idea is to show the state hasn't shown intent, then I'm going to want to say she didn't know this was this irritant, so she didn't have the intent to cause any harm with an irritant because she didn't know it was an irritant. And that story is more believable if, when you find out that your father is skin is melting off of him and he's dying, if at some point you acted like, oh my God, this horrible thing that I never knew would happen happened, right? Did she ever do that? I don't know. The evidence the state showed yesterday of the video that she sent to the other friend seemed to me to be more concerned with the inconvenience that she was experiencing, having to stay with her mother, which was slightly better than jail, I guess, and what it was doing to affect her social life. And I didn't hear any discussion about, I never meant for this to happen, or, oh my God, this is so horrible. I just can't even believe my father died like that. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have imperfect families, and that doesn't mean that you don't have any reaction when a parent dies, I think. So we'll see, especially when you're the one who threw the stuff on him and killed him. I don't know if she'd had the working credit card all along. Would this have happened? Who knows? I don't know. But we're in a state of suspense right now, waiting for the court to start. And I can put that up at any moment. And this is what I'm seeing at current. I'll do a quick check on it here. Yeah, it's still saying that it's live and totally current. So if there's any volume issues, let me know that. There's not much I can do with the courtroom volume because I turned that up all the way. But, if I come in loud over that or not, you can let me know. So at times she looked a little strange to me. She did cry when her brother testified. That at that point she did show substantial emotion, I think. And to me, it's still interesting whether she chooses to testify or not. A lot of times you don't have the defendant testify, but I mean, one of the reasons for that is a lot of times they have a substantial criminal record and also very guilty. So you don't want them to blow it. But other times, occasionally you do. And she's young. She probably has no record. And to me, one of the things working against her here is how this looks, because you're trying to infer intent to at least harass or injure the guy. And if you act like you don't care that he melted apart, it's pretty easy to believe that you at least wanted to do at least some sort of damage to the guy. It seems that way if it was intentional. I found, that exact bottle yesterday for sale on the internet and copied the label so it'd be a better picture of it and put it on the thumbnail. And I don't know what more they can do to tell you this is ultra dangerous. They put the skull and crossbones on it. It says danger, poison in the large font. It says it causes severe burns on it. I don't think you have to be a Nobel Prize winning physicist and chemical engineer to understand that pouring that on somebody who's passed out drunk is potentially dangerous. And in this case, if you remember yesterday, the judge would ask when the witness is finished, jury, do you have any questions? Nobody's had any questions on the jury. That ought to concern one side or the other. And I think, in terms of how this case is presented, a little bit disjointed on missing some of the stream witnesses, but man, does that DA talk fast. And I think too fast. Sometimes I'm not sure the witnesses are keeping up with him. And if you want the jury to catch your narrative, do you want to see just how fast you can talk? So I think he could benefit by, I'm not saying he's dumb or anything, but it seems like slowing down a little bit and pacing that would be more effective than asking questions at the fastest speed you possibly can. So we're still waiting, and we don't know what will happen with that, what's going on. Yeah, I wish I knew a little bit more about this case because, she was facing different charges before the father died. And I think she was resisting those. What if she had worked that out before he died? Would she be sitting where she's sitting right now? I don't know. And was the state interested in that until they saw how his final disposition would be from the injuries, which ultimately were fatal? I thought the medical examiner yesterday did a good job of talking through that. And I think while you could imagine that he might have died more easily because of his health or whatever, alleged alcoholism and things like that, he wasn't going to die at that time if somebody didn't pour this poison all over him and burn him up. Then the other potential defense is, I suppose, is that he did it partially to himself by rubbing it all over himself or whatever. So I don't know how far that gets you either. And can you even really know that's true? Like who would know that? Did a medical person testify to that, or will they? Or is she going to take the stand and say, I poured it on one little spot, or didn't even pour it on him. I just threw it over there and he rubbed it on himself. I don't know. It would be the only drama in this case might be if she takes the stand, because who knows what she's going to say. Yeah, the only thing more surprising than this is that I made it. But it actually did get it started. Started a little bit early, just in case the court got started on time, even though that typically doesn't happen. But the point was to show the friend's testimony, Kayla's testimony, that Megan had told her that she threw stuff at her dad. So I think I captured that in the clip I showed. And if anybody wants to see it again, I'm glad to do that, because otherwise we're staring at the seal. And we've talked about the case almost as long as they spent presenting it, I think. Because I don't know when I've seen a case involving a wrongful death like this go this fast. Instead, a lot of times they're just too slow, right? Some of these cases don't need to take as long as they do. It's just ridiculous. But not this one. This one is extremely rapid and very few objections. And when they do have an objection, the attorneys are trying to work it out together. So that leads to a rapid disposition. This is a critical question. This may be what's going on right now. I didn't catch it yesterday. A lot because of course, I can't see except what they show me on the stream. But the other thing is, it's basically mesmerized by the outstanding lighting that they were doing in the courtroom, bringing the jurors into the narrative itself and the overall production by having the juror dim the lights whenever they were showing an exhibit. And they did a fantastic job that with kind of a film noir aspect there. And because of all that, I don't know if there was a fringe on the flag, and we know that raises serious constitutional issues. And do they need to count them and see how many there are? So why not do this? And this, I wasn't listening to it myself the first time because I made it earlier this morning, and maybe hear it. Let's fire it up. I'll terminate it if they start talking in court. This is Kayla, who Megan called and said, "Can you give me a ride to the hotel?" She couldn't because she was in school. And then she said, "Can you go over to my dad's house? I need that credit card." Then she found the father. I did not include in this clip the description of his injuries, but here we go.
Were you still friends with Kayla or with Megan?
Yes.
All right. And how old were you at that time?
I was 17.
You were 17 years old?
Yes.
All right. Did Megan contact you that day?
Yes.
When was that?
It was started at 10 in the morning. She sent me a Snapchat photo of her crying, and I asked her what was wrong. And then she said that her dad got drunk and she got upset and she threw stuff at him.
Okay, so she sent you Snapchat, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about Snapchat. How does it work?
You send a photo to someone, like you add them as a friend, and then you send a photo to someone, and it deletes after you send it, or you can hold it down, but it'll replay it one time. There's a new feature where you can save it in the chat too as well, but I didn't. I don't remember if I did or not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So you said you got a photo of her crying?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you talked to her then?
Yeah.
Okay. How did you converse with her?
I said that, what's wrong?
Well, let me ask you, did you send her a message?
Oh, yeah, I texted her on Snapchat.
Okay. And you said, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And then she said what?
She said that her dad got drunk and that she he didn't care because she had stuff to do today and she threw stuff at him.
Okay. Do you know what was special about that day?
It was her birthday.
Okay. She was supposed to have a party that night. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So she was crying when in that photo.
Yeah.
All right. Did she contact you again?
Yes.
When was that?
A few hours later, she asked me to drive her to her party.
Okay.
Or the hotel.
Did you go and pick her up then?
No.
Okay. Why not?
I was in school and I didn't respond for a while, and then I said yes, and then she told me that she was going to get a ride from someone else.
Okay, so you weren't going to have to go pick her up?
No.
And then she contacted you again, right?
Yes.
When was that?
That was around 3:47 in the afternoon. She called me.
Okay. And you talked to her on the phone then?
Yes.
How did she seem?
I don't know. Just normal.
Okay.
Pretty much.
She wasn't crying then? Right?
No.
All right. So this was 3:47 on October 1st?
Yes.
What did she ask you to do?
She asked me to go over to the house and get the credit card information from her dad because it wasn't working when she was at the hotel.
Okay. So she was already at the hotel, to your understanding?
Yes.
All right. And the credit card was not working?
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I went over to the house.
All right. Did you ask her any questions about?
Oops, sorry, I had the mute on. Okay, so that was Kayla's testimony, and here, let me bring this question up. I wonder if he was ever lucid during his attempted recovery, and couldn't the defense argue that he didn't point the finger at her later? I think he was lucid, or at least people believed he was, because his son testified that he said that Megan threw the stuff on him, and so did a medical professional. And that person yesterday testified that he called 911 because he thought it was an assault. So he told people that she did it, and then she told people she threw stuff on the father. Now, it is true that he said, well, maybe this bug bomb I used did it. Of course, that's crazy. But so in other words, the defense probably will argue he didn't point the finger at her. But I don't see how you can carry that very far, because he later did say that. And she said she threw stuff on him. And so it seems reasonably certain to me that she's the one who threw it on him. But I get what you're saying. I think they'll argue that, and they'll also argue that she didn't intend to have this harm. So I think we're getting some audio from the court now, if you guys are hearing that.
Lawyers.
Of course, you have to remember here the medical testimony is he was slam drunk. And maybe he would have done it anyway. I used to be pretty loose with that stuff.
Jason DeSantis for the people.
We haven't called it yet.
Oh, sorry.
Slow it down, bro.
Case number 2022-281-519 FC, People versus Imirowicz.
Jason DeSantis for the people, Your Honor.
Frederick on behalf of Ms. Imirowicz, who stands to my left.
Good morning, Your Honor. Hunter Smith.
Thank you, sir. Megan Imirowicz. Thank you, ma'am.
Looks like she has the same
Hold on.
dress on from yesterday,
please.
I think.
May we approach?
It's her lucky dress.
Let me make a record. Last evening, I did receive a note at 2:33, yesterday afternoon. It indicates, will we be able to hear cell phone video of defendant again during deliberations, ? I had a hard time hearing it.
It's submitted as an exhibit, so.
I understand. With regard to the question from the jury, I wanted to make sure that I share that with the attorneys.
Understood.
Go ahead and approach, please.
Okay, so they have some matter they want to discuss with the judge, and it's potentially scheduling. These guys have been fairly cooperative with each other on that. And you have to remember, at least in my old experience, these guys work a lot together, all these people. And so, being rude to each other and stuff like that on a constant basis, how does that really work in a local situation? Maybe if you ride in from out of town or you're in a big jurisdiction or something, but being reasonable toward each other helps a good long-term relationship. It helps your client presently, can help your clients in the future. So I appreciate what they're doing there. Well, you're going to put this out there and apply it to everybody. I hope everyone's having a good morning. So the judge did read one question from a juror, or the jury, that said, hey, are we going to be able to hear her cell phone video again? Because we barely heard that, and they should be able to do that. Yeah, maybe things are different these days than they were when we were younger. So I think Kayla's testimony was that the father actually tried to tell her the numbers uh, on the phone. I don't know if she's looking for just a PIN number or whatever. So he's burning to death. His fingernails are coming off, Kayla said, and he's still trying to give these numbers. So it's a terrible situation. She did say in the video with her male friend that she sent later that she wouldn't hurt her father. He was her best friend. Was she telling the truth there or not? I don't know about that. But she was saying in the video, I didn't mean to hurt him. And that is an important element of a defense because the statute says that when you release the chemical irritant, it has to be with the intent of an unlawful purpose. And that can include harassing or injuring a person. So if they can establish that, or if the state fails to establish that she had that intent, then she shouldn't be guilty of the crime. So that if I'm the defense, I'm going to attack that. And while you could go with the theory of, how do we even know she threw it on there or not, which I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. It seems to me the practical defense is that she didn't intend this. She didn't intend the harm to her father. And, I didn't read the label, could be part of that. But also saying, I love my dad and, we would fight with each other, but my God, I would never intend to hurt him. If she did have a good relationship with her, that would negate the idea of intent to hurt him, I think, better than if she had a reason to dislike him. And the issue to me for that is so far in the trial, there's been no indication of her behavior before, during, or after that she ever cared that this happened to her father. So I think the defense needs to do something with that. Either call somebody that can show that she was remorseful or put her on the stand and let her cry some about the fate that her father suffered. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing right now. But one of the things that happened, of course, yesterday is they ran out of witnesses because the state went so fast and they have 2 more. So they cut court off early yesterday, which is always a joy. And he supposedly has 2 people today. And now you've got all this going on with these witnesses. And the defense said, I'll try to get people here today if I can, I think is what he said yesterday, move them up. Because as fast as they went yesterday, if defense can't get their witnesses here today, then they'd be done pretty quickly. None of these people were on the stand very long. Even though some of the questions were like the lawyer asks the question, the person answers it, then the lawyer repeats the answer or says okay, and that makes it take a little longer than it needs to. And even with all that, it was still quite short. All right. Bench conversation is over.
Nothing for the record right now, Judge.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Okay, are we ready for the jury to come in?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh, he had some nasty pictures there. It's awful. I'm sure they won't show those, which is good. Even the descriptions are just terrible. I'm sure everybody watching this remembers from yesterday. And he ended up with his legs amputated and stuff. And Kayla, who found him first, said his fingernails were already peeling back from his hands, which were themselves discolored. So a terrible situation. This is just about whether she put the chemical irritant on him with an intent to injure him, harass him, frighten him, intimidate him, is basically what the statute says. That's one thing cool about here is we don't have so many words.
You can always see.
Just lawyer or attorney or counselor
Back on the record, it is still
or
Mr.
esquire
DeSantis' case.
as an
Mr. DeSantis,
honorific.
do you have a next witness you're calling?
We do, Judge. We're going to call Dr. Laura Sewell.
Thank you.
All right, this should be the emergency room doctor. Let me create something for that. Permit.
Can you please state your name for the record? Sure, Laura Sewell. And ma'am, can you raise your right hand to receive your oath?
Under penalty of perjury, do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this court is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Thank you. You may be seated.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Sure. Laura Seawald, LauraSeewald.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed as an emergency medicine physician at Hurley Medical Center.
So you're an ER doctor?
Yes.
Okay. And are you a licensed physician?
Yes.
How long have you been a licensed physician?
2 years.
And how long have you been working in an ER?
This guy's trying to set a
2 years
Guinness
of
record for
employment,
the fastest
6 years since my
asking of
position.
questions ever.
Okay. Does that include residency?
Yes.
Okay. How many cases do you think you've seen in your career?
Oh, a few thousand.
Okay. I want to take you to October 1st, 2021. Were you working on that day?
Yes.
What was your position then?
Attending physician.
Okay. Do you recall a patient named Conrad Imirowicz?
I do.
Did you come to treat him that day? What did you remember about him? If you can keep your voice up for us.
Sure. I remember the patient was a transfer from an outside hospital coming to us for a burn that he sustained a few hours before, earlier in the day. And my initial assessment was that the patient had severe burns all over his body, mostly to the legs and arm and torso, I believe. And then our initial assessment, he did appear to be had critical injuries from his burns, but didn't need any advanced procedures from me, like an airway or anything like that. So he was able to talk.
Okay. What is critical condition?
Critical condition can mean a few different things in a trauma case. From my perspective, someone who's critical has burns to his severity, but he didn't need, like I said, an emergent intervention from my perspective, which means like an airway, putting him on life support or something like that. So he was able to talk at the time, but he did need to go urgently to the operating room to have his burns ultimately debrided.
Okay. What does that mean?
Debrided means, so when you have burns that are really severe, you actually have to take off the skin that has been injured to help with the healing process. And for him, typically with burns like that, a lot of times they'll try to do grafting for them eventually. But you have to kind of get that first layer of dead skin off, actually, to help with the healing process. And also what can happen is if you don't take that skin off, you can actually develop damage to the muscles in your, like for him in his leg, for instance, right? So it's really severe. If you don't take that skin off, the muscles themselves can start to die because there's nowhere for blood flow to kind of get to the area. So you have to remove that skin so that you can allow better flow and healing process, basically.
Okay. Now, part of your job, I assume, is to keep medical records.
Correct.
Okay. So what is your process of keeping medical records?
When you say keeping medical records, you mean just recording what I saw that day?
What are your obligations to record medical records at your hospital?
Yeah, so I interview the patient. If they can speak to me, then I, try to get an idea of what brought them in. Then I do my physical exam, and I record what I see on my physical exam. And then I do my medical decision making, which is to say what my overall impression is of what happened to the patient, and what I think the next steps are involved in their care.
Okay. And you have to keep that in every case?
Every case, yes.
And that's the obligation of all medical staff?
Correct.
Okay. And you assume keep these in some kind of computerized form, I assume?
They are kept as, yes, they're in the hospital electronic medical record.
All right. Have you reviewed the medical records in this case?
I did.
Okay. They're quite voluminous, aren't they?
I will say I didn't review every single one. I believe the patient was there for about 5 months, but I reviewed the initial records and then his discharge summary.
Okay. Judge, may I approach the witness?
Here's her brother in the courtroom.
Well, I have the page in here.
He testified yesterday.
Showing the witness the first page of People's Proposed Exhibit 15. Can you take a look at that, please? Do you recognize that?
This is just kind of an overall summary of what, to me, this appears to be an overall summary of what brought the patient in.
But that's a page from those medical records, is that right?
Yes, correct.
That's a page from Conrad Imirowicz medical records?
It appears to me, yes.
Okay, thank you. And you said you reviewed the rest of the records, which were quite voluminous, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Judge, I also have a certification from a certified custodian of Hurley Medical Center that the attached records, these are printouts of the electronic file, were made at or near the time of occurrence, the matter set forth by, and from the information transmitted by a person with knowledge of those matters. The records were kept in the course of the regularly conducted business activity, and it was the regular practice of the business activity to make the record dated June 1st, 2022 by Winkus Hall. And so I would move to admit People's Clause Exhibit 15.
Your Honor, I've read those all and I have no objection.
Thank you, so admitted.
Thank you. I'm obviously not going to display all. These are double-sided. So,
Okay.
He could read them all pretty
just wanna
fast, though,
highlight
I
a
think.
couple pages first off. If I can have the screen on, please.
So let's see if she has any reaction
Green
to
here.
description of her father's injuries. If
Okay.
I were her attorney, I would
I'm
certainly
showing,
have a discussion
page
about
one.
not
This page I
holding
just
back
showed you, and I
on
actually
that.
highlighted a section there on the right side. Can you see that?
Yes.
What section is that?
That's just the admission information.
Okay. Do you see a arrow there pointing at something?
Yeah, that's my name.
That's your name? Okay. So these are those records. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Moving now
That's
to,
her brother.
Page 22, which indicates, what does HPI mean?
That's the history of presenting illness, basically. So that's basically you saying, it's kind of your first part of the note that just says what brought the patient in today.
Okay. Can you read that for us?
Sure. So it says a blank old blank with a history of alcohol use disorder who presents for further evaluation from an outside hospital transfer for chemical burn. Per patient who is asleep this morning, I believe this is a typo, with a belief that his daughter reports some unknown chemical onto him, and he's sustained, I believe that should be sustained, a burn to multiple areas of his body. States that he slept through all of this until the significant other found him and brought him into the hospital. At the also hospital, it should be outside hospital, thus made it approximately 35% burn to the body. He was given a liter of fluid. Tetanus was updated and was given antibiotics as well. He also underwent decontamination at the outside hospital. At this time, the patient states that most of his pain is focused around his groin, but he otherwise denies any chest pain, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, vision changes, or blood thinners.
And just to be clear, I think that says difficulty swallowing. Is that right?
Difficulty swallowing. Sorry. Yes.
That's okay. Thank you. Moving on to the next page, which is page 45 of the records. Can you see that section there? Can you read that for us?
Yes. So this is another HPI. So Conrad, and can you pronounce his last name? Imirowicz is a blank seen in the emergency department as a result of a burn injury. The burns were caused by acid or chemical burn. The chemical causing the burn is unknown. The burn occurred when he believes someone threw it on him while he was sleeping and is unsure when it occurred or how long he laid in it. There was not an explosion involved. Decontamination actions were not taken at home, but were performed at the outside hospital. There's no associated inhalation injury. Center of the burns are as followed: TBSA 41%, superficial 0, partial thickness 0, full thickness burn 0.
So what is the...
Hold on, full thickness burn. Full thickness burn 41%. Apologies.
And I was going to ask, what does that mean?
So TBSA is basically it's a way to think about total body surface area. So how much of your body sustained a burn? That's how we estimate that. So about 41% of his body was estimated to have a burn to it. And then superficial, partial thickness, and full thickness burns characterize the burns. Superficial would be like a sunburn. Partial thickness would be, you might see some blistering or something like that. There's some degrees to that. And then full thickness means that it's a very deep burn. And that would be on the scale, that's the worst kind of burn.
Moving to another page here. This is... Sorry. I accidentally covered up the page number there. I'll have to get the page number in a minute. And as a matter of fact, I can move off this page, frankly, until I get the page number. At this point, Judge, I am going to show the photos.
So they're not going to show that, hopefully.
I think she has to see, maybe admit it first.
They're part of the medical records.
Oh,
sir.
that's true.
Okay,
They're
so
all-
you're going to show the photos that are part of the medical records.
Correct.
Jury, I just want to prepare you with regard to the photographs that you will be seeing. They are shocking. So go ahead, proceed.
Thank you, Judge.
See if the defendant has any emotional reaction. This would be the
Can you tell
time
us
for her
what
to
we're
do
looking
it,
at here?
real or
Yeah,
feigned.
this is a picture of the patient with some of his burns being noted. So this is on the left side, you see his back with some burns to the upper torso and to the lower back as well. And then on the right, that looks to be his left shoulder. That black over it just means that it's a really deep kind of burn is the easiest way to think about it.
Okay. What do these kind of burns have a degree?
Yeah, so this would be again, so there's two ways to think about it. There's deep, which is what we had just talked about. So that would be full thickness burn. And then when you think about, there's also a degree measurement system from 1 to 4. 3 and 4 are both deep kind of burns. These appear to be 3 to 4, which is, again, kind of the worst type of burn you can have.
I don't think I knew there was a fourth. That's awful.
Can you tell us what we're looking at here?
Yeah, so this is looks to be his right lower extremity. And this would be characterized as a 4th degree burn because you can start to see some
All right.
erosion into the
You're
actual.
getting a little emotion now.
Is that dangerous?
Yes,
Are there concerns with infections from these kind of burns?
yes.
Okay. What are we looking at here?
That's the top of the patient's head with similar type of burn pattern.
Those are kind of the same degree and type of burns as the others.
Yes.
Can you talk to us about these?
This is the patient's right and left lower extremities. These are the anterior aspects of them. Similar type of burn.
All right. What are we looking at here?
I believe that's the patient's left leg. And so on the left side here, that's his upper thigh. And then on the back, this is where a lot of his really severe injuries were, which is the whole back of his leg is essentially burned.
Okay. Were those the same type of burns?
Yes,
Did you observe these yourself?
yes.
Can you tell us about these two photos?
So this is his, these are burns to his left upper extremity. So some burns to the hand and fingers, and then to his left elbow as well. Or I should say left upper arm.
Are any of these burns anything less than the type 3 or 4 that you were talking about?
Not really. I mean, some of the speckling patterns you could technically say might be 2nd degree, but everywhere you see the black, those are all 3rd to 4th degree burns.
Okay, and just to be clear, you can see my laser pointing here, right?
Yeah.
The speckling we're referring to, is that some of these?
Yeah, that
Other
could
pieces?
maybe be like a 2nd degree or 3rd degree burn.
Okay. Can you tell us what these are?
Well, this is actually post debridement. So again, debriding meaning that you took the damaged skin tissue off, and then this appears to me to be the first stages of grafting.
Okay, and what is grafting?
Grafting is taking skin from, it can be from an animal, a cadaver, other various things, and to actually replace the old skin that was there to help with replace the skin that was there before.
Okay, so this is after some treatment is done and the other that black skin has been removed.
Correct.
It's rough.
What about these?
Similar process again. So this to me appears that the dead skin had been removed and that grafting had been placed.
In here?
This is his right lower, I believe this is right, or no, sorry, this is his left lower extremity after extensive debridement, and it appears to be that there have been some graft places.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
It appears, so this is the left lower extremity that had extensive debridement to it, and then it appears to me that I see some areas of grafting too.
And what makes you say that?
Basically where you start to see that like cross hatching patterns I don't know.
So like
yeah,
here?
so there, exactly. That looks to me to be consistent with grafted skin.
Okay. What about these other sections here that are kind of still black, or I would even say yellow or pale?
Yeah, so typically, and again, I'm not a burn expert, but that is the that's kind of old fat, essentially, that they weren't either weren't able to debride, or they thought was okay to leave after their initial surgery.
Okay. What about this here?
And that is the right lower extremity, again, was after the debridement process and a graft had been placed.
And this here?
Same thing. This is the left side of the chest after the debridement process, and looks to be a graft.
Okay. The injuries here that like my cursor's on here in kind of the center between in the center of his chest around the solar plexus, is that kind of like those specklings, what they would look like after the debridement?
Yeah, they might. Those probably weren't debrided actually.
Okay.
That's probably from the initial injuries.
All right.
Because yeah.
Thank you. That's the end of the photos, Judge. With injuries, burns like that, is there a risk of infection?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of infections can result?
Really any kind of infection, but bacterial are the main ones that you think about.
I don't have anything else, Judge.
See how quick that was? They only have one more witness, I think. So let's see what this guy says.
Doctor, where did you go to medical school?
I went to medical school at Rosalind Franklin University in Chicago.
And you did an internship?
I did my internship and residency at the University of Michigan.
And did you do any other fellowships or?
Yeah, I did a research fellowship as well.
Okay. And you've been in practice for how long before this? How long were you licensed before this?
So you're asking as an attending physician?
Yes.
Let's see. So that was in October, and I started in July of that year. So 3 months.
Okay. You ever seen a burn case like this before?
Not to this extent, no.
Ever
Well, I've seen similar burns. It's a different, depends on the question you're asking.
Okay.
I've seen extensive burns before.
Sure. Chemical burns?
I've seen chemical burns before, but not to that extent.
All right. So you reviewed some of that medical file, correct?
Correct.
Don't blame you. The police report indicates that somebody told him that his blood or somebody told the officer that his blood alcohol level was a 0.3 when he was admitted.
I believe it was 0.255.
0.255?
You'd have to check the record for sure, but there was, on my review, there was alcohol in the system.
He was also listed as chronic alcoholic.
Yes, that's the information we were given as well, and I believe that's what I think he also stated that he was a daily drinker as well.
All right. Do you know what time that test was?
It would have been, the labs would have all been drawn at the time that he came into our hospital. So whenever he arrived and blood work was done, it would have been within the hour that he arrived.
All right. And
It was 8:56.
pardon? Okay. All right. And if I said that the arrival time was 8:56 p.m., would you disagree with that?
I would not.
All right. So about 9 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
All right. Did you talk with Mr. Imirowicz?
I did.
Was he able to talk fairly well?
Yeah, it was.
Did he explain to you what happened?
Not in detail. I didn't, it's not, I think we just asked him what he thought had happened. And he said that he thought his daughter had poured something on him. But that was basically all that we
And you
discussed.
remember that specifically?
I do actually remember it specifically. Yeah.
Was the trooper present at the time?
Not that I recall. Or sorry, he could or could not have been. I'm not sure.
You're not, well,
Yeah.
don't recall, that's
Okay, that's
pretty much
that's
the same
right
thing.
word. Okay.
Okay. history were you given? Do you remember?
Basically, the history that was shown in the first part of the note, which was that it was an outside hospital transfer of a gentleman who sustained chemical burns to his body. That was the history that I was given.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Judge, I don't have any redirect. I was just going to put on the record that the one page I show that I did not have the page number of was page 300. And I can show it again if you'd like.
No.
I don't have any answers.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, any questions? No questions? Okay, ma'am. You are thanking the accused of the witness. You may step down.
Well, that's witness one done.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Yes.
Or if they have the other one ready to go. Let's get this all. So I try to show the statute or the definitions this morning before this got started. And intent to kill is not an issue here, but intent for an unlawful purpose is. And the unlawful purpose might be to kill, but it can also be to injure, harass, and other things. So you release a chemical irritant with that intent. So that's why I'm kind of going along with people saying, the defense may say she didn't know it was a chemical irritant, and also she had no intent to harm her father, would be the defenses I think you'd have to come up with. The idea that that she didn't put it on him, I don't buy that, and I also don't think him rubbing it around some is gonna get her off either. Okay, they sending a jury out.
Okay, everyone can be seated. Mr. Sands, go ahead, please.
Yes, Judge. This morning, the trooper indicated to me that he had looked at the video on his phone of him talking to the victim, Comrade Imirowicz, at Hurley Hospital. It was not something I had seen before. It does memorialize an interview that he had listed as having occurred in his report. And I believe is substantially similar. Upon him telling me that and showing it to me, I immediately alerted Mr. Miller. We went outside and watched the video on the trooper's cell phone almost twice through. It's about 9 minutes long. So at this point, I think he has the absolute right, of course, to sit down with his client in private, watch the video, decide what they want to do next steps, and of course,
surprise evidence.
I will not be objecting to.
Okay. And with regard to the video, this is not a video that has been previously produced.
Correct.
And so today was the first time that Mr. Miller or his client had any knowledge with regard to the video. Is that correct?
That's correct. And this is also the first time I had seen it.
And I believe that Mr. DeSantos did advise me right away. I've got no reason to believe he was hiding anything.
I understand. No, I don't believe that he was doing anything improper, Mr. DeSantis. Mr. Miller, sir, I'm going to give you the opportunity to review the video with your client in the courtroom. I am going to ask that everybody else,
Exception to the officers.
yeah, obviously the deputies can stay. Everyone else should probably exit the courtroom so that you can have free reign of discussion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Also, I frankly believe we're going to play the video. So I don't know how we want to do that. That might give your staff something to do and everyone try and figure out how we're going to do it. But
Okay, they did request a phone cord charger.
If anyone has an iPhone cord with a USB, I can put it on my laptop and I'm happy to play it.
Oh, okay. We're already
great.
on it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Ms. Niemer.
Sweet.
Okay, and then as far as the cameras go, I'm going to ask that once Mr. Miller is reviewing it with his client and having discussions, that you make sure that none of your equipment is recording or videoing anything, please. Okay? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So Yeah, I don't know if they offered one or not. It seems like the DA and this defense attorney have a good working relationship. So I'm not sure why that didn't work out. So we'll bring it back up from that and looking at some of the chemical discussions. We're not experts on lye in this house, but we did read about it a little bit this morning, and the various ways to deal with it. And it was kind of like if you're in your house and you get some on you, rinse it off with the water, but keep rinsing it off. I mean, you don't want to have it setting on your skin and mix it around with water and rub it in or whatever, or pour it on yourself and just put some water on and leave it there, because there is a very high temperature exothermic reaction that occurs. And then you get the results that you have here. Now, I haven't heard. If anybody has, it'd be great to kind of hear it, because I don't think there's any testimony of the water. And when, was that on him first and she put the lye on him, or did she put the lye on him and then she put the water on him, or how did the water get there? Because it was all over the floor too, apparently. And I think it was water. Well, they didn't seem to get into that too much. And the video of the bottle, you could see where some of it was kind of dry powder and some of it had mixed with a liquid at least. So I don't know. I did read about the vinegar stuff, which neutralizes it, but it said it creates even higher temperatures than the water. And so if you were to put the vinegar on your skin while you have it on your skin, you're in for an exciting and bad situation. But if you poured it on the floor, they said, well, yeah, rinse it up and then put vinegar on it as you're cleaning it up and stuff. So yeah. You want to do this. This is a good idea. If you're near Niagara Falls and you can be at the bottom of it, that would be enough water probably to create the dilution you seek. And I don't think anybody knows the answer to this question about what did he do, because the only person there other than him when the lie occurred was apparently the defendant. And I don't know that she has said anything about that. The defense did suggest that he rubbed it on himself, and he does have severe wounds to his hands. So that could support that he made it worse by rubbing it around on himself. I don't know that he tried to clean anything up. It's really bizarre, because when the friend Kayla got to the house, she said she walked in and he said hello, and he talked to her some, tried to give the credit card stuff to his daughter, and then at one point told her, my hand hurts, and lifted his hand, and she saw that it was discolored and his fingernails were already peeling off. So that's terrible. Why wasn't he in great pain at that point? Was it the level of alcohol he had? Some people made a pretty convincing argument yesterday that a normal person potentially would be passed out at that point if they had as much alcohol as he had. So I don't know the answer to that, but it should have been searing pain, and yet he was just there on the couch. I'd also read somewhere that there can be fumes that can, cause you to lose consciousness, and if he were already blasted to the alcohol he had, maybe that helped keep him down. I don't know. Yeah, let's say he was as smashed as the defense even says he was, and you pour this stuff on him, and he's drunk and out, he's not in his right mind, and you pour this poison all over him. I don't think it's unexpected that the person might end up rubbing some of it off. There's a whole series of YouTube videos where people put something in a drunk person's hand and put a feather on their face and then laugh hilariously as they hit their own face with an egg or whipped cream or whatever. So it's not an unexpected result. Yeah, and that might be why he wasn't totally passed out, but why he was kind of out of it. On the other hand, he was talking to his son when the son got there, and the son said he was talking kind of normally to him, and he did communicate with the ER doctor. So I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't know whether we'll hear all of it. The defense is going to call witnesses, they said. So I don't know who those will be. And also, will one of them be the defendant, who would be the primary source of information about what happened that day, whether it's true or not true? She was the person who was there. So I found this bottle yesterday online for sale for about, I think it was $8 at Ace Hardware or something like that, the exact same bottle, and it's marketed as a drain cleaner. And so look what it did to him, right? So you pour this stuff into your drain, I guess, and some water in it, and away you go. We don't have anything that concentrated here, but we have acids and things around because we have a pool, and you gotta be able to do this and you got to do that. So you have lots of chemicals there that we don't throw on each other. but I don't have one that is in a white bottle with a gigantic red skull and crossbones on it. This is danger poison on it, like this one does. So I put in the thumbnail for this live stream a picture of that label so they can see what it looked like. Yeah, that's a good idea. And if you do, keep chemicals away. Yeah, this stuff was 100% lye, it says on it, in crystal format. I should have downloaded a picture of it. I could be bringing it up right now, but I didn't. But the thumbnail picture is accurate. So this was like the most ultra concentrated stuff you could have, I guess. Yeah, we have lots of chemicals here, although it gets more restrictive all the time. Lots of things too, right? That some other countries don't have. I saw somebody earlier say this was in a box, and if that got said, I missed it. I'm not saying it didn't get said, but I think it is material to the defense. If she picked up a box of stuff and threw it at him, and this came out of it with a bunch of other stuff, that would go against the intent to release a chemical irritant for these unlawful purposes. So versus, say, she went to a yellow hazardous materials cabinet, worked a combination lock to unlock it, picked the thing that said poison on it, and poured it on him, that would obviously go against her, right? Going for her would be if it had been transferred to a bottle that said baby powder on it. So, you can see the extremes, and in the middle it was in a box with other stuff. But he did have a lid on it, and I think if you're the defense, you might want to say how it was she came to have this bottle open and poured on him without getting any of it on her. And if it was in a box with other things, maybe that's how they do it. I don't know. I missed that if it was said that it was in a box. I wasn't catching that. Yeah, I guess you'd say the defense could say, well, it was in a box marked really safe stuff that doesn't pose a threat to anyone, and next to some bread and baby powder and hand lotion, and then also this bottle of lye. She never knew, but I don't think they've done anything so extreme yet. Yeah, it definitely has a lid on it that was taken off at some point and then poured on there. Yeah, and I don't know that she picked this particular one out on purpose, and that's certainly going to be something to argue against. That she was just grabbing whatever was handy. And where was this bottle? Even if it was in a box, where was this box? Because we keep chemicals under the counter or somewhere else because we don't have little kids running around here. So we put them under the counter, and if it's really dangerous, it goes outside the house. So like if one of us decided we needed to melt the other one, we'd have to actually go out to the garage or to the storage shed and get things that would work for that. Even the under the sink stuff wouldn't completely erase either one of us. So I don't know where her box was. Yeah, I don't know. Well, this is terrible. This is terrible. I haven't seen anything that suggests to me that she intended to kill her father, right? Yeah, that was the result. Not only did she kill him, she killed him in a very horrible way. Very horrible way. I haven't heard either about her visiting and communicating with him in the hospital. So that would, to me, also be interesting if that comes out. Yeah. Well, we don't know what all things she poured on him, of course, and she might have done that. Of course, maybe he drank it all. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable position to take. And now, to me, that's going to go into the punishment phase. Like, she shouldn't have done what she did, but if she wasn't trying to kill him and this, that, and the other, how much punishment does she get? I don't know that. I have not heard if she's going to testify. The defense did say yesterday they have witnesses to call, but they didn't, when I was listening, bring that up specifically. I don't know how many of these things we have. There's a lot in this room, but they're just all over the house. That's something we'll have to deal with at some point. Like everybody else, we mostly read things on the internet now. But I usually keep a couple books around reading on history and stuff. Yeah, so I don't know the answer to that, and I don't even know how the water or whatever the liquid was. I'm thinking it's water. Even got there. Did somebody go get a bucket of water and throw it on him? Was it an attempt to help him? Was it just to further express anger? There's a lot about this I don't know, and it's possible I missed it, but I'm not sure that it's been said yet. This is certainly conventional wisdom, right? Now, what I would say to people is you're testifying all the time, right? It's really when you leave your house, because like you don't want to cut off a juror at a red light and they recognize you later, don't say anything, and they think something bad about you, or in an elevator or whatever, going to the bathroom and stuff like that. So especially sitting at the table as a party to the case, you are in effect testifying all the time because the jury's going to look over at you. And we did, right? So when they were describing the injuries to the father, you look at her and see what's her reaction. So she's having a chance to communicate to the jury there without getting on the stand. That's, to me, a form of informal testimony. Can be quite important. So I don't know if it would be a good idea to have her testify or not. I think it's critical to try and show that, that she never thought this would happen. And one way to do that is to show how horrified she is, like everyone else is, at the results of this situation. Whether they think that's critical or not, I don't know. So in theory, this young woman on her 18th birthday got mad at her father, and he was drunk, and she poured things on him, or threw things on him. And one of those happened to be a bottle of lye, and a bottle with a big skull and crossbones on it marked poison and danger, and this will burn you. And then she left, called a friend to go over there later. The friend found him already starting to be burned up, and the burns remained complicated. He had his legs amputated, fingernails off, down, which is terrible, worst case scenario, and he died from it. And now there we go. Yeah, this is good. This is a good point. There could very well have been one there. I didn't see if there was one, but that would make some sense. Well, certainly when I'm dealing with documents and things, if I can, I like to print those off still rather than just do them online. And I like books too, but it's so easy to get on the internet and just find something about the topic you want. But if you want to go in depth on something, a book is there for you, I think. So what's going on right now, to tell everybody, is that they are reviewing a video that was kind of breaking news, a new piece of evidence, and the defense may want to show it, and he's reviewing it with the client, and the judge rightfully said, let's shut down the live stream until that part is done. We don't really know, I suppose, but he was in maybe a stupor from being ultra drunk or whatever, but yet he was talking to people later. But at the time, I think she communicated that her father was blasted drunk, and a lot of what she was doing during the day was trying to figure out how to get his credit card to work in the various places she was going to celebrate her birthday. So anybody want to see Kayla's testimony again? I can run that up if you want to. Yeah. I think this is correct here. I think that's correct. All right. So let's throw down here and show this testimony of Kayla for the third time, and possibly the last time. It was from yesterday. This is just an excerpt of the friend who the defendant asked to go over to the house in the afternoon and get the credit card information from the father because his credit card was not working at the hotel. Let's view it.
Were you still friends with Kayla or with Megan?
Yes.
All right. And how old were you at that time?
I was 17.
You were 17 years old?
Yes.
All right. Did Megan contact you that day?
Yes.
When was that?
It was started at 10 in the morning. She sent me a Snapchat photo of her crying, and I asked her what was wrong. And then she said that her dad got drunk, and she got upset, and she threw stuff at him.
Okay, so she sent you Snapchat, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about Snapchat. How does it work?
You send a photo to someone, like you add them as a friend and then you send a photo to someone and it deletes after you send it, or you can hold it down, but it'll replay it one time. There's a new feature where you can save it in the chat too as well, but I didn't. Or I don't remember if I did or not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. So you said you got a photo of her crying.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you talked to her then.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you converse with her?
I said that, what's wrong?
Well, let me ask you. Did you send her a message?
Oh, yeah, I texted her on Snapchat.
Okay. And you said, what's wrong?
Yeah.
And then she said what?
She said that her dad got drunk and that he didn't care because she had stuff to do today and she threw stuff at him.
Okay. Do you know what was special about that day?
It was her birthday.
Okay. She was supposed to have a party that night. Is that right?
Yeah.
All right. So she was crying when in that photo.
Yeah.
All right. Did she contact you again?
Yes.
When was that?
A few hours later, she asked me to drive her to her party.
Okay.
Or the hotel.
Did you go and pick her up then?
No.
Okay. Why not?
I was in school and I didn't respond for a while, and then I said yes, and then she told me that she was going to get a ride from someone else.
Okay, so you weren't going to have to go pick her up.
No.
And then she contacted you again, right?
Yes.
When was that?
That was around 3:47 in the afternoon. She called me.
Okay. And you talked to her on the phone then?
Yes.
How did she seem?
I don't know. Just normal.
Okay.
Pretty much.
She wasn't crying then, right?
No.
All right. So this was 3:47 on October 1st.
Yes.
What did she ask you to do?
She asked me to go over to the house and get the credit card information from her dad because it wasn't working when she was at the hotel.
Okay. So she was already at the hotel, to your understanding?
Yes.
All right. And the credit card was not working?
Yeah.
What did you do?
So I went over to the house.
All right. Did you ask her any questions about?
So that was her friend who went to the house and found the father and ultimately called the brother and got 911 over there. And watching some of the comments scrolling, I can understand her having anger with the father and things like that under the situation as she is describing it. I get all that. The statute they've charged her under, it's releasing a chemical irritant with an unlawful purpose, and that can include harassing, injuring, intimidating, making somebody afraid or whatever. And it strikes me that she did do that, but I think some of these comments you're talking about, those are relevant towards what's the right sentence for this if she's convicted. So it's up to life sentence for this because of the death. And so it's a pretty serious statute to be charged under. And we'll just have to see whether she gets convicted on it or not. She's got another charge, domestic violence, and something else too. And I see some adults here who have had experience in their childhood with parents driving around drunk and not concerned really with safety and stuff. And those aren't things you forget, right? So yeah. And you can have some sympathy for a kid who's dealing with a parent who's putting alcohol above the child's welfare. At the same time, you got to be careful with what you do. You can't just do whatever you want, and that includes throwing poisonous substances onto somebody that burns them. And there's some kind of price to be paid for that. So, yeah, he did have it on him for hours, right? So what's bizarre about this is as the burns intensified and things, I guess he just stayed on the couch the whole time because that's where they found him later and wasn't screaming in agony and stuff. That's just weird. Yeah, it's true. If she'd slung a vodka bottle and just sliced a finger off, that is a heroic situation for some people, and for others, not. I think even maybe the medical guy said that yesterday, that probably aided in his lack of sensation at the time when it was so bad, and quite possibly, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, see Christina's stories here. I'm not putting those up because I'll leave this for the people in the chat to see, but I get it. I completely get it. Completely get it. So what we're doing is waiting right now because I only had the extra clip of Kayla to show. We've watched that a few times, and something came up unexpected, which was a video have something to do with the defendant and maybe this law enforcement guy. And the judge is giving the defense attorney and the client a chance to review that because they had no chance before. And the defense is being extremely reasonable about it. And in fact, he said, well, I may want to show this. And he might, right? Because if it shows her saying, oh my God, what happened? What are you telling me? Happened to my dad. Well, that's be very positive for her because it would be a contemporaneous reaction to the situation. And that's kind of what I'm looking for from the defense is tell me that show me that, that the obvious situation of here's a bottle of poison and I threw it on somebody and it burned them up, that I didn't intend to cause any injury. And that one of the ways to do that was to say, well, I didn't know what this was, or I didn't know it would do that. And you're going to need to show that, I think, because I think it's fair to say otherwise that, that's the situation. So if I caught it right, I think maybe it was produced by law enforcement, or I don't know if it was somebody that videoed her talking to the law enforcement guy, but I think that is what it is about. And the video was mentioned by the prosecution, and he said, I just got this. And he said, I don't know if I'm going to show it or not, or something like that. And the defense said, well, we probably do want to show it because it probably shows a whole interaction with the police. But the judge wasn't going to put them on the spot to make that decision without looking at it and thinking about it some. And the defense attorney stood up and said, under no circumstances am I saying the DA did anything wrong here. I know he didn't get this video until just now. And the judge agreed. And that's the kind of working relationship they all seem to have, which I think is good. And so right now the defense counsel is looking at it with her and making a call on whether to show it. The other situation is they had to get this video off an iPhone and onto something that can be shown in the courtroom. So they were working on that. And God bless them for that if you can't airdrop it to something else in the courtroom. And I'm sure they cannot. But they believed, and a very optimistic and a robust pioneering spirit, believe that they can take a cable and remove a video from an iPhone and get it onto courtroom equipment and show that. So I will be impressed when they do that, but they do seem to have a competent team of IT people available there. Well, I don't know. I think this is it's just both, right? Just both. At least in what I did was a lot of both, because we had people coming for lots of reasons. And I wasn't ever any criminal defense lawyer full time or whatever. I only did that a little bit. So, and if you were going to be on the defense and you figured out how to do it, then you would attack first, because the best defense is a good offense sometimes. Just file a suit first. So we'll wait and see what this is. If it's an entire video of her interaction with the law enforcement upon being presented with the facts about her father, and then I think it's good for both sides to get that out there. And the DA let's assume it's not great for the state, because maybe it shows her being remorseful or whatever. The DA is not just supposed to win; they're supposed to pursue justice. So if it does show something that's beneficial to the defense, he did the right thing by saying, "I just found out about this, and you deserve a chance to review it and decide if you want to use it." Yeah, the juror is right on it. So you notice today the noir lighting came on and off for the pictures, and nobody had to say anything. So unless a court person went over there to operate the lights, the juror has synced into the situation, and yet will receive no additional compensation. So it wasn't crystal. It even says crystals on the label. And so, yes, I imagine somebody pouring it over. But that's just my imagination. She threw it over on him, and then in the stupor, he spread it out, which it seems to be what the defense is going to say, which is it's either a mitigating factor for sentencing or an attempt to defense against the crime. But I don't know how it does, because the fact that he smeared it around some, he didn't pour it on himself. And you could expect somebody who's drunk to maybe smear it around some. But they're going to potentially say, well, he wouldn't have died if he didn't smear it around. If he had reacted like a normal person and got up and washed it off, the injuries wouldn't have been substantial. But I don't think that gets him off of this, in my opinion. Yeah, I think either she knew it would hurt him some, or she did it just because she was mad. And it's also harassment is good enough to activate this statute. But I also agree that she wasn't thinking, well, what I'd like to do is kill him right now, because it didn't have that effect. It took him months, and I don't know that you would have expected him to die from that, but you don't have to under the statute. He's not charged, I think, under the murder statute. The one I found that seemed to match the elements was this release of a chemical irritant, and then for an unlawful purpose, and then the punishment is decided by how much injury it causes. And that's true too. Now, I do think the fact that his fingernails were already peeled off by the time the friend got there could indicate, he was reacting to this somehow. So if the defense says, well, he made it worse by spreading it around, I wouldn't argue about that, but I would just say, okay, but that doesn't make any difference. Would be my view as the state. Like, he doesn't have an obligation to sit there and take it once the other person puts it on there. But, maybe it would matter for sentencing, where you can, it's a little more Wild West sometimes in terms of what you can say in sentencing. And, the defense attorney could then use the alcohol stuff and say, she had to live with this. And is her entire life over because in his alcoholic stupor, he didn't feel this burning sensation and made it worse and didn't react. And that played into his death. So should she go to jail for the rest of her life for that? Those kind of arguments would be good, I think, for sentencing. Okay. It is back up to the seal of the great state of Michigan. So the video it issued, the DA said was 9 minutes long, and maybe they watched it, and maybe they have moved it to a device that can be shown in the courtroom. There was somebody who, I didn't catch them on camera, but informed the judge they were already working on it. So extremely impressive if you get this video off an iPhone and onto court machinery in a way the jury can see it. It's pretty awesome. When we move stuff around between GoPro and iPhone, it's pretty complicated. You try and do it with Wi-Fi, but the files are big and it takes forever. Then there's a special cable that you have to buy that costs $1 million so that Apple can have a new headquarters. And then that, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think this just depends. I got a little lull right now. It's working for this case, and I didn't see anybody else talking about it. And if other lawyers are talking about cases, usually won't try to bother with it unless it's something that's really interesting to me. And I think I'm going to watch it anyway. But like for Gwyneth Paltrow, Legal Bites invited me on for a couple of days of that, and I did that with her, and that was pretty fun. I think they got the right result in that case. I know some people are skeptical of juries, and I think it's reasonable to be that. But in my experience, once jurors are seated, they almost universally make the attempt to do the very best they can on a case and reach the right result. And if they're not perfect in all cases, what do you expect? These are people off the street. The alternative to that are professionals who that's all they do. And I think the idea is to keep the justice system grounded and checked by using members of the community as the ultimate arbiters of what happens. I like that. And don't forget, the parties can always waive that. They can just have the judge do it if they want to. So somebody wants a jury trial and they get it. And, you can think you're an expert and you're this and you're that, but when you stand up in front of 12 people you don't know who are in that box, the feeling is different. And it's, I think it's one of the, the few palpable ways you can feel this sense of community. It still exists. I kind of feel it when I go vote and I'm in line with people, and I know a lot of those people aren't voting the same as me, and some of them are, but everybody's taking time out of their day to go do that. I like that, and I like it's an inconvenience to them when you see the members of the jury watching with attention this case about to be put on, and as members of the community adjusting the rights of their fellow citizens. The professionals in the legal system hand it over to them for that. I think that's good. And there are checks on it, if they were totally wrong, the judge can reverse it and that kind of thing. But I like it. Of course, most of the time you don't want to be on a jury because you have to miss things in life and sit there and listen to a case. And a lot of times it's boring and occasionally it's long, but most cases are not long. I was at jury duty a while back here in this county. They didn't get selected for anything or even have to appear for anything. Our whole group got dismissed due to the cases settling or getting moved out. It was the first week they were actually going to move the cases to electronic format in North Carolina, and they're only doing that in certain counties, but Wake County is one of those. And I did not want to be on a jury for that because I know it was going to be tough for the attorneys to figure it out and do it all electronically. They didn't want judges signing orders in the courtroom. You had to transmit it around to each other and all of that stuff. And I was dreading it, but ended up filing a lawsuit with this system, and it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I have to admit that. And let's see. I don't know about rotten stories. My stories are, when you're my age, you don't want to tell too many stories because it's just old war stories. But also, if they're true, should have a defense. But I've seen some interesting, cool things in person and done some cool cases. And I am vintage enough that when Johnny Cochran came to Winston-Salem, North Carolina for the OJ case, for the Mark Furman tapes, I was in the courtroom for that. Watched him and F. Lee Bailey make their argument in front of a judge who I knew and used to shoot sporting clays with. So that was interesting. And F. Lee Bailey didn't do anything in that motion, as I recall. And I don't even know if he said anything, but Johnny Cochran did. And the judge ruled against him at that level. But Cochran was really good in the courtroom in person. Again, I think it's one of those things where, watching somebody on TV is different than in person. And he was, in my opinion, very talented. But he lost. Okay, the judge found against him, but it went expedited to the Court of Appeals and they reversed it. And even though I like that judge and he was a man of great integrity, I did agree with the Court of Appeals reasoning later to send those tapes off to California, whether they were rightly or wrongfully used later on when a guy's on trial for his life. I think he should have access to anything that can be material evidence. So that was kind of neat to see that, because people still talk about that case. And Cochran was all business. They didn't really play that stuff out in the courtroom. They went back in chambers for it, and then they came back out and argued about it for a little bit. And the argument to not release the tapes over to Cochran's team was they would lose commercial value for the person who owned them once they were released in the course of the trial. That they had a value. And so you compare that versus the defendant having a right to use these potentially in his trial. Which one do you hold as the higher value, right? But it's one of those things, right? Because you got this court in California and they want this evidence. Well, they got to come to North Carolina and they got to have a North Carolina judge decide the situation here. These courts, state courts, don't have infinite jurisdiction that sometimes people think that they do. I won't war story it too much, but sometimes I watch these cases about killers and stuff like that, and I did find myself to background when I first started out, due to the military background I had. I worked with the state here in the profiling capacity, not me doing it, but assisting the guy who did. So worked on cases all around the state, developing profiles for repeat offenders and bringing law enforcement agencies together back when there wasn't as much technology. So you'd manually read these cases and try and look for similarities and signatures and things like that, and see if you had a serial offender bouncing around jurisdictions. So I was exposed to a lot of crime in this state at that point, and spent time in a mental institution with a mass murderer talking about things. Found a serial killer victim in a car with a law enforcement friend of mine. So I've seen a lot of this stuff live. Sometimes it colors your perception when you see these cases later on too, in both directions. Certainly my early experience was more toward the side of wanting to deal with these offenders, not defending them. And when you see a young person's life taken like that and disposed like they're garbage, it doesn't lighten your view of the people who do it. All right, so let's come back here. Get off of the memory lane here, thinking about horrible cases. So I'm going to pull you out at random here. And I think absolute punishment is needed, but not 25 years. This was not premeditated. immaturity and uncontrolled anger. So, all right, I think that's a solid argument for the sentencing because I kind of agree with that. I don't think the defense has shown me anything that counters the state's theory and evidence that she poured this on him, and she knew, or any reasonable person would know, this was a chemical irritant, and she did it to at least harass him, if not injure him. Statute met, boom, and it comes down to what the punishment ought to be, right? And that's anywhere up to life in this case because of the way this statute reads. It's not under the murder statute; it's its own chemical irritant thing. So I get that reasoning. All right, we're back in the game. More story session.
People versus Imirowicz, case number 22-281-519 FC.
Jason DeSantis, the people, Your Honor.
And Frederick Bell on behalf of Ms. Imirowicz, who stands to my left.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. Hunter Smith.
Thank you.
Megan Imirowicz.
Thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to bring the jury back in. Are you guys all set?
We are ready to proceed, Judge.
Thank
you
you.
for recess.
Thank you, Deputy.
Oh, that's right.
So at least in some of these cases, I think it's really just balancing the rights that are involved in it. And here in North Carolina, the Court of Appeal said, yeah, we need to send this to California, and they did. It's also my recollection that the argument was commercial value and that also these were like fictional accounts, so they wouldn't be that relevant anyway. So they were diminishing the reason why Simpson needed them, but also saying, I have a value here that will be destroyed. It was that kind of argument. This was a long time ago. I didn't imagine then that I'd ever be talking about it now. So I didn't make a journal, but that's my vague recollection. And the courtroom session, there was nothing like what they had in the miniseries. I will say that.
Sir, can you just raise your right hand to be sworn, please?
Under Kelly Perky, you solemnly swear that the testimony that you give before this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you, sir. You may be seated.
Are you okay in the truth, Chair there? Do you please state and spell your name for the record?
Yes, sir. Hunter, Hunter, last name Smith, common spelling, S-M-I-T-H.
And how you employed, sir?
I'm employed by the Michigan State Police.
And how long have you been with Michigan State Police?
About 3 years.
Okay. What's your position?
A trooper.
And what were your duties on October 1st, 2021?
My duties are to cover the northern Oakland County area.
And how do you do that?
I do that by taking calls for service in Holly, Rose Township, and Groveland Township, and just respond to calls, run traffic, stuff along those lines.
I want to take you to that date of October 1st, 2021. Were you dispatched to 1650 Duck Creek Lane in Ortonville?
Not initially. I was dispatched to the Ascension Genesis in Grand Blanc.
Okay, so you were sent only when to the hospital location at first.
Correct.
And what was the dispatch for, to your knowledge?
Our dispatch call was a victim was burned, originating from 1650 Duck Creek Lane, which is in our coverage area.
Okay. Did you work alone that evening?
No, I had two partners, three including myself.
Okay. How many vehicles?
Through 3 vehicles, I believe, or 2 vehicles. I'm not sure.
Okay. What did you find when you got to the hospital?
When I got to the hospital, I was greeted with Julie Imirowicz. I believe it was the son of Conrad. I'm blanking on his name. I'm sorry. And then 2 other witnesses, Lucas and Kayla.
Okay. Now you said Julia Imirowicz. Do you mean Julie Conrad?
Or correct. Sorry.
Okay. And you don't recall exactly who you met with when you got there?
No, not initially. No.
Okay. Would looking at your report refresh your recollection?
Sure.
May I approach the witness?
Yes, sir.
Just take a look at that, read through it to yourself, and then put it face down and look up at me when you're done. Did that refresh your recollection?
It did, sir.
Who did you meet with when you got there?
So like I said, I met with those 4 witnesses, and then I met with EMS and hospital staff.
Okay. And so what was your process when you got there?
My process when I got there was to interview everyone that was either a witness or there, and then to get further information on how the victim was doing and speak with, EMS and hospital staff to gauge what was happening.
All right. Now, before we get to who said what and who you talked to, did you eventually go to the Imirowicz home?
I did.
When did you do that?
I did that after I spoke with Conrad Imirowicz later in the night.
Okay. And what did you do when you got there?
When I got there, I went inside the residence. I observed what was to be a messy house, and I took pictures of what I thought at the time was evidence.
And Judge, can I use the screen?
Yes.
Admitted as People's Exhibit 4. Do you recognize that?
I do, sir.
Is this a photo that you took?
It is.
Okay. Can you tell us about the scene here?
Yeah, so when you walk in the house, it's a bi-level house. So we took the right to go up the right staircase. Where that picture was taken, it was to the left. So once you get up on the landing of the staircase on the upper level, you take
Looks like a 2-liter
and the
bottle
couch was right
below the
there.
couch. Maybe a
When we
soft
walked
drink
in, that's
instead of
exactly
water.
What we saw, and that's what we
Just throw.
photographed.
Okay. Tell us about the condition of the couch.
The condition of the couch, it's obviously not the best shape, but it appeared to be moist, wet. You could see visible areas of darkened of the leather or whatever material that is. Then you saw, the blanket right there with the bottle at the time, with the white stuff sprinkled all over the couch.
Did you know what the white stuff was when you saw it?
At the time, I didn't move anything, so I did not at first.
Okay. As part of your investigation, did you eventually obtain the bottle that's shown there?
I did.
Okay, and you took it in evidence?
I did.
And what's the process for preserving evidence?
The process of preserving evidence is you collect a piece of evidence and then you take it to our post, and then it's just the chain of custody, just so no one touches it, stuff like that. You collect it, you preserve it, and then you bring it to the post, and then the property sergeant handles it therefore after.
And when did you actually go and get the bottle?
I went so I photographed this on the day of the incident. It was probably about 2 to 3 weeks later when I went to get the bottle.
Okay. And when you went to get the bottle, when you came back to the scene, had anything changed?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Was there anything you observed that indicated that there was any difference in the bottle or its condition?
Not to my knowledge.
Judge, I'm showing counsel. Judge, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'm showing what I've previously marked as People's Proposed Exhibit 9. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
What is it?
It is a bottle of household 100% lye drain opener.
Is that the bottle that you found?
It is.
Is that the way you packaged it?
It is.
And is that the way you preserved it for evidence?
It is.
Does that fairly and accurately show the condition as it was when you collected it and also the night you saw it?
Yes, sir.
I move to admit People's Proposed Exhibit 9.
No objection.
So admitted.
Tell us what the bottle says on the front.
Okay, so the bottle says on the front, crystals of household, 100% lye drain opener. It says, gets the clog out.
All right, at the bottom, there's a red label. Is that right?
Correct.
What's on the red label?
From what I can read, it says danger, poison, something swallowed or inhaled, causes severe burns, and then the rest is kind of covered with the white powder.
Is there a picture on it?
There is.
What's the picture?
The picture shows a skull with crossbones.
Now, the bag is completely sealed, correct?
Correct.
Nothing can get out.
Correct.
Even so, Judge, I'm just going to show it to the jury versus let them handle it. Of course, if they want to look at it more closely, they can take it back.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did notice from the other picture of this thing that the white stuff, and it seemed to have reacted with the liquid, was covering up a lot of that label.
When you got there, was the bottle full, empty? How much was in it?
The bottle was fairly empty. There could have been a couple particles of the substance in the bottle.
And in fact, there's some here in the bag, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you pick up any of the powder that was on the couch and put it in the bag?
I did not. The remaining powder fell out.
Okay. All right. Now I want to take you back to when you first made the scene. You talked to the witnesses who were present, correct?
Correct.
Then you talked to medical staff.
Correct.
Now, did you talk to Conrad that night?
I talked to Conrad later in the night.
Okay. Did you talk to Megan that night?
Later in the night.
Do you know which one you talked to first?
I talked to Conrad first.
Okay. Where did you speak to Conrad?
I spoke to Conrad at Hurley Medical Center in Flint.
Okay. So this was after he had been transferred.
Correct.
Do you recall what time it was?
I'd say probably around 10 to 11 o'clock is when I got to Hurley Hospital to interview Conrad.
Okay. And when you got there, what was his condition?
His condition was stable. Obviously, he had a lot of pain, but the medical staff provided him adequate medication for that pain. So he was alert. He was conscious. He was able to speak with me coherently.
All right. Were there other people in the room when you were talking to him?
Hospital staff, nurses, I'm presuming doctors.
Okay. And did you record that interview?
I did.
Okay. Judge, I'm showing what was going to be marked as People's Closing Exhibit 21.
This guy's pretty straightforward too.
Trooper, I'm going to need you to come down and unlock it.
Yeah, Trooper.
You don't want the lights off again, Judge?
Yes, please.
They do have that special cable. Somebody's a hero at this trial to have that.
Now, Trooper, we were just reviewing this. Is this the recording of you interviewing Conrad?
Correct.
And it's fair and accurate.
Correct.
Judge, I move to admit People's Closing Exhibit 21.
I've seen it, no objection.
So a minute.
She wanted to go with her place. I couldn't get her in for whatever reason. So they were going to go to a hotel. And she wanted her hair colored. She's got really dark hair. Like black, like your mask. And it's really hard to color.
So you got a pacemaker, right?
No.
No?
Nothing.
Nothing in
No
here at all?
medications, no.
Do you mind if we go in your house?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Door's open.
That's fine.
And so I don't know. Last night I noticed you threw a bunch of stuff at me. Got mad.
We did like stuff meaning.
There's she rearranged her bedroom, so there was a mattress on the wall. She went crazy on that stuff. I've asked her to take out the garbage several times, and that hasn't been working. But
Is this kind of? I'm trying to gauge this. Is this a normal behavior that she would throw stuff on you to burn you?
no, she usually it's an argument. I get mad at her, she gets mad at me. We badmouth each other. It's quite normal, right? But this is very, very. So last night I had half a Smirnoff. Put the bottle down.
I bet the Smirnoff.
No, it was a little.
Oh, the airplane size?
No, the Smirnoff. What do you call it? Ice.
Oh, beer, like the beer thing.
Beers.
Yeah, like the seltzer.
Little seltzer, right?
Sure.
Lemonade. So I watched the movie, shut off my phone, call it a night, pretty early. And this morning, I got up, finished my Smirnoff, watched the rest of the movie, went back to that. And then just I know, I got all kinds of people in the house with still,
Were you sleeping when this happened, or were you
Yes.
unconscious?
No, sleeping. I wasn't unconscious. We didn't have anything to drink. I only have half the Smirnoff, give me a break. I was thinking about getting her some breakfast and stuff, or making some. I was going to get her a breakfast because the dog's got the 2 for $5 thing going. Keeps, so I was going to do that. Are you good? Or am I still with you? Okay. Okay.
I won't bother you that much. All I need, if you don't remember, you don't remember. All I just want to know if we could go into your house to investigate what happened.
Go ahead. The door is open. My house. So I'm on.
The door is open. I have.
There's a bunch of cats.
Let me talk to him and then we'll talk out there.
All the cats can go out except for the little gray one.
Okay.
I mean, she's tiny.
Right.
Padawan, she's not old enough to go outside yet.
Okay.
Right? But
Do you mind if I see your hand? If you just want to flip it.
Like that, pull this cover off, I can't get it. The legs, please show the legs.
Are you wrapped up in this?
Yeah, good. We're wrapped up in
You're wrapped in like a bungee or whatever.
Wow, that is awful.
It's like this and then rub it like.
this side. Yeah, it gets good too.
Is he okay to lift that up like this?
You feel it? Yeah.
You have it on your back. You don't have to get up, but I'm just asking.
I heard it in. I don't know. I had got on my, you can see my shoulder if you wanted to flop it down.
It's okay.
Can I show him the pictures that I took?
Yes, you can.
Perfect. Okay, I will. I appreciate it. You get better, and I'll keep in contact with your family. Okay.
All right, awesome.
Yep. All right.
I don't know what they're going to do.
All right. We'll feel better. Okay.
So they're not going to be water.
Well.
Yeah, well,
Is it the end of your interview with him?
Correct.
And it was after that that you went to the house.
Correct.
Okay. And it was after that that you spoke to the defendant.
Correct.
Now, where was the defendant?
With the help of her mother, we were able to track her in Waterford at a hotel, Quality Inn and Suites, right off 59.
Okay. And did you make that location?
I did make that location.
Do you recall about what time you did that?
I'd have to say right around midnight, 11:30-ish.
Okay. And when you got there, you weren't working alone, right? You got other officers?
Correct, my two partners.
Okay. When you got there, what happened?
When we got there, we were able to. We had a hunch that this group of kids in this vehicle maybe be, one of them maybe be Megan. So we approached that vehicle and I asked, "Is there a Megan here?" Which she stated yes.
Okay. And do you see that person in court today?
I do.
Can you please point and identify something she's wearing for us?
Correct. She's right over there on the right wearing a blue blouse.
And Judge, I'd like to have the record reflect that witness identified the defendant.
No objection.
So noted.
What was going on in the car when you got there?
It was dark, so I'm not sure what was going on in the car. I just saw maybe a group of 5 to 6 kids just in the vehicle. It's like a van-style vehicle.
Okay. Now, you asked if there was a Megan, and the defendant said yes?
Correct.
What did you do then?
I asked if I could speak with her.
Okay. What did she say?
She said, okay.
And so what happened?
So I brought her to the front of my patrol vehicle where there's a camera. And then I advised her she's not under arrest. I just wanted to speak with her and get her side of the story and see what happened tonight or earlier in the night.
Okay. Did the camera record that interview?
It did.
Is that fair and accurate?
It is.
Okay. And you've seen it recently?
I have.
Judge, I move to admit People's Pro's Exhibit 19.
No objection.
So noted.
Thank you. We can dim the lights again. Thank you.
So this was where she was having the birthday celebration with her friends.
Is this that video, sir?
Correct. It records at 30 seconds just for your knowledge.
Yes, sir.
What's your name by chance?
Colby.
Chloe what?
Not Howard.
Howard. Do you got any friends in here named Megan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's alright. Do you mind stepping out and talking to me for a minute? How are you? You got any weapons on you?
No.
Okay, we're just gonna go talk in front of my car, okay? You know why we're here?
No.
You don't know? Yeah. So we're just making sure, making sure he's okay. We talked to right over in front of this car. He's actually at the hospital right now. So I don't know if you know that or not. So do you know why we're here?
I know that they told me that he has some kind of burn on it.
Okay.
So I'm just going to stop this for a moment. Trooper, who's that in the center of the frame?
That'd be Megan Imirowicz.
Okay. That's this person here I'm indicating with my cursor.
Correct.
And who is this with my cursor?
That'd be myself.
And who's over here?
Not sure what happened. I'll fix this.
I left around 2:30 maybe.
Okay. Right now you're not in trouble. You're not under arrest. I'm just seeing what happened. Okay. We have a couple stories from Austin, and a couple other people. So we're getting your story. Okay. So in greater detail, what happened today? So you left at 10 o'clock. We heard there was a little scuffle.
Okay, I left at 2:30, but I woke up at 10 and I realized that it was my hair appointment, and obviously my dad had been one take me to my license. And I walked over to him and I woke him up, but I could tell that he was a little drunk, so I was upset, obviously.
That's fine.
But he kept saying, like, I can't, I'm drunk, you take the car. Like, I can't take it.
Right.
And he was telling me that. I started yelling at him behind because obviously that's been a hard thing, because
Absolutely.
he's not drinking and it breaks my heart.
Absolutely. It's tough. I totally understand.
And I just kind of got mad, and all I threw at him was a bag of rice. And I know that didn't hurt him because it's a bag of rice. But I got upset. I went to go pack my stuff because Cody was coming to get me and bring me here.
Okay.
And then I went to the bank because I had to, his credit card wasn't working, and that's what we paid under. So I went to the bank and everything, and I asked my friend Kayla to go to my house so we could, she asked my dad to put number for that number. And that's when she told me, I don't think he's okay, something's wrong with him. And I was trying to ask me what was happening, what was going on. But I don't know. And then my brother texted me and was like, Megan, when Kayla's done calling in ambulance, tell her to call me back. And then I told her, and she called him. And then they all just started, my mom called me, and she was like, Megan, did you do this to your dad? And I was like, no, I didn't. I would never intentionally hurt my own father, and I'm such that I don't think I would. But I could never do that to him. I didn't. And there's a lot of stuff over in that area, so it could have been over there. Since our house is a mess,
What could have been over there?
they said chemical burn, so I don't know. But my dad keeps a lot of stuff over there. I don't clean it up because I shouldn't have to be beat up on it.
Right. I totally get where you're coming.
EVE Online on Mac immerses you in a universe with thousands.
So I'm gonna be honest with you. Your dad's in bad shape. So there's a lot of burning on your dad. Okay. Consistent with chemicals, right? You said you were fighting with your dad. That's fine. I totally understand. If he's drinking, that's absolutely not how we should be running his household. Totally understand that. But it's just not, I'm not understanding. Is this self-inflicted? If you, picture put you and people in that house, and you leave at 2 o'clock and he's perfectly fine, right? And all of a sudden, he's,
I get that.
you know what I mean? So, how did he get these,
We have stuff over there. We have cats that knock things over all the time. It could have been them. I don't know. If I knew that there was chemicals over there, I would clean up. But I didn't know.
you remember me? Remember I talked to you in the, right? Okay. So, I was there in the house, right? I understand the whole situation that got going on. Last time I tried to talk to people, barely even sit up. So I understand the anger and the upset and stuff you would have when we saw it. Okay. Now we went over to the house today. Okay. So we were also told by some of your other friends that you told them that you prepared to handle the product and
I never could clean how they're cooking. Maybe it's I do food. There's only ever food around there. I would never intentionally throw something dangerous out my closet.
right. Why
So we found the cleaning product that was just like all up. Now here's the thing, here's what makes sense, right? You just throw a piece of bread in and all the things burned up, that would make sense. But it doesn't make sense. If you just grab the things like I'm upset, throwing it at him, and that's fine, and that's what happened, and that's what we're trying to keep bottom of. He's in the hospital, and we need to know what was thrown at him. Okay? So I'm not saying you intended to do anything intentional. If you're upset, you're throwing things, you know, and you're upset because of the situation, you're supposed to be there for him. I understand that, but we need you to be honest with us, okay? Be honest with us.
It goes a long way.
It goes a long way, so
It really does. If you're more honest,
what it was that you were throwing. Do you remember? Do you not remember? You don't remember? Okay, then possible that you threw some other things aside from that.
I mean, it could be possible. I don't know.
Okay. So there was this canister stuff called lime. Okay. So it looks like it could have been thrown over his head and it landed all over. Okay. Is there any reason why your fingerprints would be on there?
I mean, I carry the groceries. That's my job.
Okay.
So we all do.
Do you remember throwing anything at him that caused like a slight contact of it?
not intentional. We're not saying you intentionally tried to. We're trying to figure out what she did.
I don't think so. I mean, it was like liquids, or there was probably like water or something. Like I don't know.
Like a water bottle or a cup of water.
It was in a bottle with water.
Okay, and that's still on it.
So this is where we're at, right? You said you threw bread, only bread. And now you said you threw water. So this is going to be okay. We do this every single day, all right? I don't want to see you get jammed up. If you tell us the truth, it will be better for you, okay? Rather than lying and then we're beating around the bush and we're out here for hours on end, when we can just figure out what's actually going on, okay? That's why we're here. We're just figuring out what's going on. So do you want to restart and tell us what happened? Okay, so what happened?
So I was throwing things. I was just grabbing anything that was on the board, and then I just got late. I got tired of it.
Was he awake during this time?
It was on and off. He would fall asleep in place, and then he'd wake up. It wasn't like he was fully awake. Obviously, he was intoxicated, so
Yeah.
So
So he wasn't really talking and you were just upset at him.
he would only say like, "Why can't you take the car? Why can't you take the car?" That's all.
Is that before or after you moved on from that? So while you're doing things, is he saying anything or just kind of confidence?
So was he coherent or was he just totally like, he was out of it? When you were throwing stuff, right, you're unintentionally throwing stuff. Not, just, I understand, I totally get it.
You're not having you take
Sure.
around.
Right, that's fine. When you threw anything, because we need to help the hospital out here. They're trying to figure out what's going on because, like I said, he's in rough shape, okay? Was there any white substance that flew out of something when you threw something at him or anything? Or we're trying to help your dad out here.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Is it like on the couch? Did you see like where it went on his body? Okay, well let me start here before you say that. Was he wearing a shirt? Remember? Shirt and
No, I know he wasn't wearing pants because never.
okay. So where on his body did you see that white stuff go?
He mostly went on the couch, a little like on his like lower legs, but he was mostly covered with blanket.
With a blanket? Okay. You know what that stuff was?
It looked like something for the tug or something. Yeah.
Okay. Alright. Now, you ever use that stuff to clean yourself? So like drain all, like lie.
Like when my just for one of them. It's like my dad uses it sometimes to fix the
We know that gets clogged up. Alright, so we know all that stuff. So this is somebody's like skin. You don't know? What do you think? Feels good. You have that wrinkle type stuff on the skin.
Let me back up just a minute. When you threw it on him, was he just motionless sitting there?
Yeah.
He didn't try to wipe anything off, so it kind of just soaked into his skin, right? And then you took off. Is that the extent of kind of what happened? Okay.
would you call? You called Kayla, the neighbor, right? To check on your dad. Yeah. Were you worried about his safety or?
Well, I needed this credit card payment. I also wanted to know if he was okay. Like, I'm not gonna just, like, I know that I have to be the one that takes care of him when my brother's not there, so I'm gonna check in on him.
Is there any reason why he wouldn't be okay? Okay. Were you concerned that there was white powder on him? That maybe he would have ate through his skin?
I didn't know he would do that. I thought things like that just kind of sat there. Nothing would happen.
All right. Is there anything else you want to tell us? Okay. You got any weapons on you right now?
I just have my ring key, my phone.
Okay. What's your, what did you do after that?
I left and then I came here.
And then are these your friends that you're hanging out with? Your mom, right? So it was your birthday, what, 2 days ago now? Okay. Was your, you said you had the dad's credit card?
Yeah.
And did he give that to you?
He lets me borrow. He knew I had to borrow it today from the So I don't use his credit card unless it's like I ask him and I put my own money on there so I can use it whatever.
Alright, now, I guess my question to you is, why did you tell us initially that you only threw bread? What were you afraid of that?
I don't want to get in trouble for something I would never purposely put my mouth in.
Did you think that what you did today might have hurt him when we came here? Is that why you weren't telling us everything that happened?
Well, I knew because obviously, like, my brother's yelling at me, like, everyone's yelling at me, because they think I'm this horrible person, and it's like, I didn't actually do that. And I don't want to get in trouble for something I never had to do. I didn't think it hurt me.
Okay, so you're in my shoes, right? How old are you? You just turned 18. If you were to throw, and give me the honest truth, if you were to throw Drano, household acidic cleaners on someone's body, what would you think that would do? I mean, we're both smart individuals. It's fine.
I didn't think like a powder alone would do that.
Well, you said you threw water too, right? You see how the water then is okay. So, at this point, I'm gonna have you turn around. You are under arrest, okay? Alright, so turn around, place your hands behind your back, okay? We'll try not to make it a big scene, go like this with your hands, okay? And I'll explain to you what's going on, alright? I'm not saying you're a bad person, but you got anything on you other than what you said? No. Okay.
I don't have my shoes.
That's fine, we'll grab them. Okay. If you're, hey, listen to me. Okay. If you're cool with us, we're gonna be cool with you. We're doing our job, okay? We'll let you call your mom. Yeah, we'll let you call your mom. We'll grab your shoes, all your belongings. We'll take off, okay? As far as like your bracelets and stuff.
Yeah. It's in my pocket.
Okay, let me just double lock these so they don't tighten up on you, okay? Are these okay for right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Alright. So for right.
Judge, I'm stopping the video at 15 minutes and 30 seconds for the record.
Thank you.
Trooper, what was your sense from that conversation?
Well, my sense from that conversation was there's only two individuals in the house. There's Megan, there's Conrad, right? Conrad has, superficial burns, quite extensive burns on his body. There's only two people in the house. I was trying to figure out, was this self-inflicted or, was this deliberate by, the defendant, stuff along those lines. Just trying to gauge the situation, interviewing all parties, part of my due diligence as a police officer.
Okay. I want to ask another question. One of your comrade troopers mentioned something to her about fingerprints coming off the bottle. When you were trained as a police officer, were you told what fingerprints are?
I was.
And do you know how they obtain them?
I do.
How do they obtain them?
So there's different types of ways to obtain a fingerprint. So for example, this bottle, it's a white bottle. Usually we use black powder, and then you kind of sprinkle the black powder on the bottle lightly. It'd be hard in this sense just because there's so much chemicals on there. But anyways, you'd sprinkle that light powder, apply an adhesive tape, and then lift the fingerprint off, and that's how you kind of preserve a fingerprint.
Now, did you try and do that in this case?
I did not.
Why not?
Because she said she brought the groceries in. I mean, in our opinions, as you know, on that scene, troopers on that day, we figured it wasn't necessary at that time.
So when she said she brought the groceries in, her fingerprints could have been on the bottle for a completely other reason.
Yeah, it could have been on anything.
All right, it might not be indicative of guilt or innocence.
Correct.
All right, and also there was chemicals on it. You said
correct.
Okay. I don't have anything else, Judge.
Thank you, Mr. Muller.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you arrived at Hurley Hospital, correct?
Later in the night, correct.
Later in the night. Had you been to Genesis Hospital first?
Yes.
You didn't talk to Mr. Imirowicz at Genesis Hospital, did you?
No, at the time, no.
So what time did you get to Hurley Hospital?
Like I said, probably around 11:30 to 12 o'clock in that general time frame.
11:30, 12 o'clock at night, correct?
Correct.
All right. So you went to Hurley Hospital, 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. And then you had the interview with Mr. Imirowicz.
Correct.
And we saw that on the tape. You also talked to Julie Conrad, correct?
Earlier in the night at Ascension Genesis, correct.
At Genesis you talked to her. All right. Did she give you the location of Megan?
She did.
Did she give it to you then or later on?
If I recall correctly, I believe I didn't ask at that time just because we needed to go talk to Conrad, go to the house. So I think I was in communications with her via text message. And I'm pretty sure that's how we obtained the accurate location when we went to go try to interview her.
And that's in text message with Julie Conrad, correct?
Either text message or phone call, I don't recall.
All right, but that's who you talked to, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you left there, you got there 11:30, 12 o'clock. This is at night, right? Yeah, answer yes or no.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
No problem. You then went to the house.
If I recall correctly, could I look at my report?
You can look at your report.
Okay.
So after you left Hurley, you went to the house.
After I left Hurley, I went to the Quality Inn to interview.
Okay.
I apologize.
About what time did you leave the Quality Inn, or leave to go to the Quality Inn?
Around that time frame. I wasn't at the hospital that long, so maybe 10, 15 minutes later.
So you said you got to the hospital at 11:30, 12 o'clock.
Right.
So you left the hospital 12:15.
If I got there at 11:30, probably left around 11:45. If I got there around midnight, probably 11 or 12:15.
All right, so it was late. Mr. Imirowicz, Conrad never said his daughter threw anything at him, correct?
In the interview with Conrad, he states something was thrown at him. He didn't give specifics.
He said it was the night before, correct?
I don't recall if it was the night before on that video specifically or the day of, because he said a couple contradicting events.
You were given information with regard to his alcohol level, correct?
I was.
And based on what the report says, you had it about a 0.3.
Yep, the nurse, when we got in there, said he was at about a 0.3.
Okay. And that's a significant amount of alcohol.
I'd say so.
He indicated to you he had, if I remember correctly, he woke up in the morning, finished watching his movie, and finished the half bottle of Smirnoff Ice?
What he described as the seltzer beer bottle, Smirnoff Ice.
Is it possible for him to get a 0.3 if he had just that amount of alcohol?
No.
In the morning?
No, sir.
He had to have had a significant amount of alcohol, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, just for information, when you pull somebody over, and I assume you do road patrol as well.
I do.
All right. There's a level where if someone blows above that level, you take him to the hospital, correct?
In some instances, yes.
Usually what level is that to take him to the hospital?
It's very dependent, circumstantial. Some people are functioning alcoholics that would exhibit maybe a 0.25 or a 0.3, but they seem coherent. They seem, coherent enough to, do sobrieties and, go to jail and stuff like that. It's all situational based. There's not a protocol for Michigan State Police, no.
All right. If he was a 0.3 at, what was it, 9 o'clock when he got to Hurley, do you know what he'd have been at 4 o'clock when the ambulance showed up?
Judge, I'm going to object. That would call for speculation as to the individual rate of a person metabolizing alcohol.
Response.
If he knows, Your Honor, first of all, I will rephrase.
Thank you.
Have you been trained in alcohol enough to know what the blood alcohol level would be several hours before?
Yes, sir.
You have.
Yes, sir.
So if he blew a 0.3 at 9 o'clock at night, do you know what he would have blown at 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Again, he could have been coming down as far as blood alcohol coming down or coming up. There'd be no way to tell as when he started drinking and if he's either going up as far as intox, wise or going down. So unfortunately, you wouldn't know.
It would be substantially higher than a 0.3, though, correct?
If he was going up, yeah.
He indicated he had half of a Smirnoff Ice in the morning after he woke up and he watched TV, and then he went to bed, correct?
Correct.
And again, that's not possible. He had to have more alcohol than that, correct?
In my professional opinion, yes.
Now, you went then, after you interviewed him, you indicated you went to the Quality Inn, right?
Yes, sir.
You went to the Quality Inn, you were looking for some individuals.
Correct.
Had you been told what those individuals were there for?
Briefly, I might have been told briefly about a birthday party of some sort.
Okay. You pulled in and you saw this group of individuals in the car.
I did.
And you thought this was possibly them.
I did.
How long, any idea what time of night it was?
Again, it was later in the night. It was dark out. I'd say around midnight.
Well, if you got to the hospital at 11:30 and left at 11:45, how long a drive is it from Flint to Waterford?
From Flint to Waterford, I'd say about 20 minutes.
Okay. If you left at 12:15 and you've got to the hospital, then this would be 12:30, 1:45.
Sure.
You don't remember what time specifically?
I don't have it time stamped on my report. No, I don't.
All right. Now, you knew that this individual may have been partying. This was a party, correct?
Correct. Birthday party for an 18-year-old.
For an 18-year-old. Did you question her with regard to if she'd been drinking anything?
No, sir.
Did you observe her eyes to see if she'd been smoking anything?
Like I said, it was dark out, but I didn't observe any notable clues, whether she was intox or any other recreational drugs or drugs.
Did you look?
I was looking at her eyes, yes, while I was speaking with her.
That the lights were down at her legs, correct? Or at her lower waist, the car lights, correct?
Correct. There was still ambient light, though, that I could see the person's face, Megan's face.
You questioned her for quite a while, correct?
We did.
The moment she said she threw white powder on him, was she free to leave?
She was free at any time in that interview until she was arrested.
after you left her, you went to the house at some point?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
Again, I don't have the time-stamped information, and since it was 2 years ago, it's hard to recall the exact time and events that.
You went that night, morning, right away?
Correct.
You were still on your shift?
Correct. During my shift.
What observations did you make of the house?
At the house, I observed it was quite messy. There was a lot of bugs on the ceiling. Not sure what they were, but it was just a messy house in general.
Did you? What was there? An odor?
It smelled quite bad. Yeah.
What kind of odor?
I don't recall. It just wasn't a pleasant odor.
Throughout the whole house?
Yes, sir.
You said there was liquid on the couch.
The couch was dampened, so there had to have been liquid at some point or another, but there wasn't standing or stationary liquid that was sitting on the couch pooled. It was soaked in.
Was there something soaked in on the floor by it? Do you remember?
I believe so. I don't recall 100%.
Okay. And where was the bottle? The white bottle when you got there?
On relation to the couch?
Whereabouts on the couch in the house was that white bottle?
Correct. So once you go up the right side of the stairs, you get on the top level. If you hang a left, that's the living room. The couch is facing what would be the south wall, right under a window. The bottle of lye was on the left-hand side of the couch if you're looking south in the household towards the couch and the window.
So it was on the couch?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know if anyone had been to that house before you? After this incident and before you?
Well, sure. The EMS was in there when they loaded Conrad up. I was told that there was other individuals that went in the house to check out the scene.
Were you aware that Julie Conrad was sent back to the house by Austin Imirowicz?
I was not.
Were you aware that they were in the house?
I was not.
Okay. Do you know if anyone else was in the house?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. All right. If I could have just a second.
Nice job by the state to show that video toward the end of the case, because it shows she threw it. She'd lied about throwing it. She knew he was in the hospital. Didn't care about that at all.
Mr. Stannis?
Nasty.
Yes, sir. Give me just a moment, please.
Nasty. Little redirect here.
Now, Trooper, you said you got Megan's location from Julie Conrad?
Correct.
Okay. You don't recall exactly when that was or the method?
I don't, unfortunately.
Now, when you were interviewing Megan, you were observing her, correct? You were talking to her.
Correct.
So you were looking at her pretty much the entire time, which was about 15 minutes before the interview.
Correct.
She's making me angry.
You're a Michigan State Police Trooper. Is that right?
I am.
How many drunk driving investigations have you done?
Probably 150, maybe 200.
Okay. What kind of training, what are you told to look for or trained to look for when you're conducting a drunk driving investigation to see if someone's intoxicated?
So you look for multiple clues of intoxication, whether it's watery eyes, bloodshot eyes. It's called nystagmus in the eyes, when the eyes kind of bounce when you do tests with the eyes. You observe, odor of intoxicants, how the individual presents himself. Can they walk properly? Can they answer your questions, in a manner that a sober person would, if you will, stuff along those lines.
Did you observe any of those indicators when you were talking to Megan?
I did not.
Okay. So was there anything to your knowledge that suggests that she might have been intoxicated?
No, sir.
Okay. When you approached the vehicle she was in, did you see anything that would suggest that there was intoxicants going on?
Unfortunately, it was dark. So, we had our flashlight, but I didn't want to blind everyone else in there. So we had enough light so we could see the individuals in their hands, but we didn't see any, either alcohol or drugs, narcotics, around or anything like that.
Have you been trained in the odor of marijuana?
I have.
Okay. Have you smelled marijuana?
I have smelled marijuana.
Did you smell any marijuana in the car?
I did not.
Okay. So do you have any reason to believe that Megan might have been intoxicated when she saw it?
Absolutely not.
Now, when you were talking to Conrad at the hospital, right? He was there. Was he hooked up to an IV already?
I believe he was.
Do you know if he had been administered any medication?
I'm assuming.
Okay.
But
But you don't know for
sure. Yeah.
Okay. In the course of your career, you've interviewed, I assume, many people.
Correct.
Okay. Have you ever had someone lie to you?
Daily.
Okay. Have you ever had someone lie to you to protect somebody else?
All the time.
Okay. Now, when you were talking to Conrad, you, of course, identified yourself as a police officer, right?
Correct.
And you were in full uniform.
I was.
And you were investigating a crime scene.
I was.
And in fact, you were investigating his daughter.
Yes, sir.
And so he told you that she threw stuff at him.
That's what he stated. Correct.
Okay. But he didn't specify exactly what.
Correct.
And he also told you that he had drank just a little bit of Smirnoff.
Correct.
Smirnoff Ice, actually.
Correct.
And we know that's not true, right? His blood alcohol level, that's not possible.
Correct.
All right. Now I want to talk about the house. When you got back to the house, it was unlocked, correct?
It was. Yes.
Okay. Was there any indication that anything had been rifled through? I mean, it was a messy house. But...
Unfortunately, it would be hard to tell just because it was so messy.
Okay. I don't have anything else, Judge.
Just briefly, you've been trained to detect marijuana nowadays, I assume.
I have.
What do you do to detect marijuana?
Just the odor of marijuana. If you are investigating a OWI scene on the road, you do a lack of convergence test, just to test their eyes and test their balance and stuff along those lines.
Did you do that in this case?
I did not.
And Mr. Imirowicz didn't need any tests. You knew he was a .3, correct?
Well, he was. Yeah, correct.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, do you have any questions? Okay, sir, can you write down, please?
There's a question. I think that would be a first.
Yes, please.
They'll let the jurors ask questions if they want to. They just haven't yet.
Location of the bottle cap.
I do not.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, any other questions? Yeah, let me get to you. And ladies and gentlemen, any other questions? Go ahead, Mr. Sands.
Just to be clear, there was a couple bottles there, so let's break them down. Do you know the location of the bottle cap for the live bottle?
I do not.
Okay. There were other bottles present, correct?
There was lots of bottles present.
Okay. Presumably you saw some bottle toss, but you did not know where the bottle of live top was.
Correct. It was too messy for me to rifle around everything.
Thank you.
That covered my questions.
Any other questions?
We'll see if the state rests.
Thank you. Judge, the people have no other witnesses.
Boom.
People rest?
Yes.
Okay, people rest. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 11:51. The people have rested. The defense will have an opportunity to call witnesses if they would like. Is this a good time for you to take your lunch? Would you like to take your lunch now? Okay. Do you have witnesses?
They're supposed to meet me in like 7 or 8 minutes in the cafeteria, so I should have witnesses.
Okay. Would you want 1 o'clock?
About 1:15.
1:15. Okay, we'll come back at 1:15. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, ready?
Okay, so we heard that. They will reconvene at 1:15. So we will
Search anything, we're searching the internet, any other resources with regard to anything related to this matter, please. See you at 1:15.
telling the jury don't do wrong things. And if you can, I'll come back at 1:15. If we're going to do that, I'll post up a link for it. But right now, she looks certainly guilty to me, and it's just how much punishment does she get? She did it. She wasn't sorry about it. She lied about it, and finally got caught for it. So, and didn't care to go see her father or whatever. So it looks pretty bad. That's my opinion. And I appreciate all the comments, and we'll talk to you guys later.